Welcome to InFocus.
Today is Tuesday, September 11th, 2018.
I'm Maddie Drucker.
And I'm Anushka Sharma. InFocus starts right now. Parking permits are now being enforced.
And 17 years ago today, the world was changed forever. Pally staff recount where they were on the fateful day of the 9/11 attacks.
All that and more coming up with today's show. Now let's move on to today's campus bulletin. A bad yearbook photo can be pretty embarrassing. Luckily, there's an opportunity to retake them or get a new student ID. Photo makeups are today and tomorrow from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. in the small gym. Students and staff can visit during preps, brunch, and lunch to take photos. Parking permit enforcement started yesterday, and anyone parking in the Pally parking lots now needs a permit. Permits can be purchased at the ASB bookkeeper's office for $100 for the year. This Friday will be the year's first club day. In order to allow optimal time for club signups, there will be an alternate schedule with a 65-minute lunch.
Today marks the 17th anniversary of the terrorist attack on the Twin Towers and the Pentagon.
Today, the nation remembers this tragic event. Pally is remembering 9/11 by placing about 3,000 flags on the quad. Each flag represents someone who lost their life during the attack.
Most Pally students were too young to remember the attacks or hadn't even been born yet, but Pally staff certainly remembers them.
Some members of the Pally staff were kind enough to sit down with us and share their stories, feelings, and reactions as they watched the tragedy unfold 17 years ago today.
We have a breaking news story to tell you about. Apparently, a plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center here in New York City. It happened just a few moments ago, apparently. We have very little information available at this point in time, but on the phone we do have Jennifer Oberstein, who apparently...
In 2001, I was working for the NBC affiliate in Phoenix, Arizona, which is Channel 12, and I was actually off on 9/11. And my schedule was really weird. I went to work at 3 a.m. I got out at 11 a.m. So my sleep schedule was crazy.
Well, I was just waking up for my day. We normally never turn the TV on. We were living in Washington State at the time. And that morning something prompted us to turn the television on.
I was turning on the news. It was early in the morning, and I saw the second plane hit.
We turned it on and immediately saw the coverage of the Twin Towers.
We were just going about our business in journalism class, and then all of a sudden my English department chairperson came knocking on my door. She came running to my door. She's like, "This is a journalism class, right?" And I said, "Yeah, it's a journalism class." She said, "You have to turn on a TV." And I said, "Well, we don't have a TV." She said, "Come to my room, you got to watch this." So we left our classroom, went to her room, and turned on the TV, and they were talking about this plane that had hit the Twin Towers in New York.
My wife at the time came in and she's like, wake up, something's happening. And I ran into the living room and I saw, you know, the footage, the infamous footage of the towers, and watched it and saw them fall.
Christina, our younger sister, had flown in from Chicago the night before, and she ended up sleeping in. She was supposed to be at a meeting at the restaurant called Windows on the World, which is like halfway up the tower. And she was down in the plaza when the second plane hit. But it was for about 5 or 6 hours, we didn't know where Christina was. And that was pretty scary.
I was really scared. I went out on our porch, I looked outside, I thought we might be invaded.
We were kind of frozen, didn't know how to feel. It was very unreal. It just didn't seem like this could be happening.
We watched as that jet crashed into the second tower. Everybody in the room was silent, and it was really crazy, and whoa, what just happened? People still had no idea exactly what was going on. And I remember a student in my class, Eli, and he said, "Yeah, it's so weird because my sister's a flight attendant." And we're all like, "Oh my gosh, that's terrible."
So then I got in my car and I had to, this was after both towers had collapsed, and I had to get to work. And my commute from where I lived in Tempe to the station, which was in downtown Phoenix, went right through the flight path of Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix. And every day normally I would see all these planes coming in. There'd just be tons of them, landing, taking off, etc. And the skies were just nothing.
As I was walking to work, I usually parked up a hill and walked down to the waterfront to my office, and everything just seemed still.
and I worked so many hours, like long 12-hour, 13-hour days, little bit of sleep, because they didn't know what was going to happen, so they wanted people to be ready for anything.
Got home that day, and my first grader had written his own little writing of what happened with 2 big tall buildings and 2 airplanes, and he drew a picture of the Twin Towers and airplanes flying into them. So that struck me.
When I got to work, I worked for the county. I worked for an elected official at the time, and I pulled into the county offices. This was probably at 7:15, and there were National Guard had been deployed, and there were guys with long guns everywhere. And back in the day, we didn't see that so much.
I was walking out of school, 6th period that day, the last period of the day, and I saw Eli sitting in the hallway crying, and I'm like, Eli, what's wrong? And I just thought he was really upset by what had happened. And he said that he had found out just like 5 minutes before that, like at the end of the school day, that his sister was actually a flight attendant on that plane that we saw crash into the tower.
For the first, till about 11 o'clock, there was a lot of conversation about whether we should shut down the government because nobody knew what was going on.
And it was really interesting to me because his family then started this movement of peace because they said that they didn't want their daughter's death to be used as a justification for war. And we made a special trip to the 9/11 spot at that point, which was still a smoldering pile of rubble. Like there were workmen still working there, but there was like fires and like it was just a disaster area. Another teacher and I walked in with him, and we had talked to his parents about going and all of this. And as soon as he walked in, he saw like this makeshift memorial to his sister, and I'll just never forget that time because it was such a powerful moment for him. And like he just kind of broke down, and we broke down, and it was like just this moment of bringing everybody together around this tragedy.
Mention we have a breaking news story to tell you about. Apparently a plane.
Now moving on from what topped the headlines 17 years ago to what's topping today's headlines today. This past Wednesday, a new fire dubbed the Delta Fire sprung up in Northern California. As of Friday morning, it had expanded to 22,000 acres, shutting down portions of Interstate 5. More than 1,220 firefighters have been deployed to quench the blaze, but it shows no signs of slowing down at the moment. A Massachusetts man on Friday pleaded guilty to mailing 6 threatening letters containing suspicious white powder to several public figures across the country, including Stanford University law professor and Palo Alto resident Michelle Dauber. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, Daniel Frisiello of Beverly, Massachusetts is looking at facing at least 5 or more years in jail and a fine for up to $250,000.
From what I've heard, Pally sports have had a pretty strong start to their seasons.
I haven't really been keeping track, but some of my friends told me about football getting some wins. Max Bonsetter joins us now. How have our other teams been doing, Max?
Maddie, they've been doing pretty well too. Both football and volleyball are off to a great start. The girls' JV volleyball team had a successful tournament and won 3 out of their 5 games. On the football field, the JV and varsity squads took on defending state champions McClymonds on Friday. The Vikes weren't intimidated while facing the state champs as the varsity team defeated McClymonds 29-20 in a spectacular comeback. Quarterback Jackson Christ had a monster game, completing 16 of 27 passes for 349 yards. The JV team wasn't as lucky. They gave it their all, but unfortunately suffered a 38-13 loss. Today, there are plenty of games to attend for a break from schoolwork. Girls varsity water polo takes on Mountain View at home at 3:30, with JV playing at 4:45. The boys are in the pool at home facing Mountain View, with junior varsity starting at 5:45 and varsity at 6:45. Boys varsity volleyball is at home versus Cupertino at 4 p.m., while girls JV plays away at Monte Vista at 5:30, followed by varsity at 6:45. The freshman team is at Mills High School at 4:30. Girls JV tennis meets Cupertino High School at home at 4 p.m., while the varsity team plays away at Cupertino, also at 4 p.m. The girls varsity golf team will tee it up at Menlo Atherton at 4:10. Finally, come out and witness history as the Pally girls varsity field hockey plays their first ever match versus Monte Vista at home at 4 p.m. Best of luck to all teams playing. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Max. Many people have requested to put weather back in the show, and when the people speak, we listen.
Our meteorologist Ingrid Paichow is in the studio now with today's weather report. Ingrid, it looks pretty nice out there today.
Prosto
Hi, hey Anushka, hey Maddie, thank you so much. Today is going to be a bright sunny day ahead of us. Right now the temperature is 73 degrees Fahrenheit and the high today is 77 and the low will be 55. There will be a gust of wind blowing at 12 miles per hour. Our humidity is 44% and there is no precipitation today. Looking at the weekend, our high on Saturday is 72 and our low is 54. Our high on Sunday is 70 and our low is 54. And we'll continue to see really sunny weather. Kicking to the 5cast. Our highs this week is going to be the low 70s and the high 60s, and it's going to be really sunny. For the lows, they're going to remain in the mid 50s. Looking at the Doppler map for the Bay Area, we expect some chilly weather on the coast, but as we move towards the East Bay, it just gets warmer and warmer. Well,
Thanks, Ingrid. Well, that does it for us for today's episode.
Be sure to visit our website to check out old episodes, check the bulletin, or send us an email. Also, be sure to tweet or DM us your daily picks.
Also, be sure to send us your announcements to bulletin@infocusnews.tv. Until next time, have a great day, Pally.